starting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to What You Should Care About, a suggestion cast by the Synod Art Collective. Our suggesters today are Benjamin Heaton,
Hello?
Vincent Watkins,
Hello.
and Matt Smith.
Hello.
And we're going to start with Matt's suggestion. And the format will be that the suggester will have a few minutes to suggest, and then I and the other members of the cast will maybe ask some questions, and then that'll be the plan.
Good plan.
Now, before we get into that, should we talk a bit about why we're doing this for people?
Yes. We'll have Ben do that.
Alright, so the purpose of this is for us, the Synod, to help you, the listening public, know what you should care about. And to set an example, we will be doing this by instructing each other on what we should care about.
I think that's a fairly misleading description of what we're doing, although, in all fairness, it might have been in response to the very misleading title that we decided on 3 seconds before the broadcast began. But if you recall, yeah, the podcast, I'm sorry. Oh, we can't edit it out either. That's in there forever.
What did you call it?
Years from now, my children are going to be listening to me calling this a broadcast.
This is a broadcast. It says broadcast in the interface.
This is okay.
To be fair, this is a category of thing that it's hard to talk about.
There's really no precedent for what we're doing here.
Yeah, this is a video where people are talking.
But
God is also difficult to talk about, so we'll say it's very much like a divine entity.
Right.
This broadcast.
But anyway, the point of the suggestions is not for us to come on here and say, like, hey, this is a really good book so that you should read it, or I like this movie, or check out this Italian restaurant. The purpose behind these suggestions in particular is that there'd be times in a conversation when we wanted to reference an idea from a particular work or a theme or just some attribute of a work that couldn't be easily communicated through words. You essentially send someone out and say, well, go watch this and then you'll see what I'm talking about. And there are times when it's unwieldy to stop the conversation and go and watch a half-hour show or read a book or whatever. And so what we're trying to come up with are suggestions of works that people should experience that would give them reference points in the future to say, oh, this movie was like, well, I don't know what the particular examples are going to be, but, this movie was like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, or this video game is kind of like Kid Chameleon.
Basically building up a useful cultural vocabulary.
Yes.
The movie Groundhog Day is a good example of this. It's a good movie, but the useful thing about it is not the fact that it's good. It's that it makes it very easy to refer to that type of time loop scenario.
So in a sense, this is like in the Muppet Babies, they're always referencing culture, and it's usually popular enough culture that everybody gets the reference and knows what's going on. And so you want to make it so that for less popular references than that necessarily. They don't need to be as popular as stuff Muppet Babies are always parodying.
Well, but ideally it wouldn't just be like a premise that you could explain in a few words or something that you could easily understand without watching the work. It's something that's difficult to communicate without directly experiencing the work. Otherwise, you just
right.
So this is more like, so you can say, the emotion I felt when I finished that novel was very similar to the one that was brought about by the third subplot in the second arc of that anime series.
Could be.
Kind of.
It's not necessarily emotional, but that would certainly be a valid suggestion to make, I guess.
It's like how the Alamo doesn't have a basement, but in order to know that, it's not enough to just learn about it in school. You have to go there and experience it.
I learned that from a movie, actually.
Yeah, I think we all did. And that movie is a good example of what we're talking about.
I see what you did there. So clever.
Bait and switch.
All right.
Really.
So I think it's time for Matt to start suggesting things. Otherwise, we are not suggest casting as promised.
Oh, I didn't know that's what this podcast was about. So.
Yeah, me neither. To be honest, I enjoyed learning what we were doing from this.
We talked about this months ago.
Yeah,
But not
and
for-
then never again after that. Until right now.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that everybody here has an eidetic memory.
if your suggestion doesn't really fit the topic, just come up with a new one instantly. Or we'll wait.
Or use a suggestion that doesn't fit the topic. It's not like I care.
Yeah.
All we're going to do is criticize you for it.
I mean, in fairness,
Yeah, suggest cast. It's not like I care.
in fairness,
Our title is not Suggest Cast. Our title is What You Should Care About.
but suggest cast is better in that it actually is more closely going to get people onto the right page about this project that Vincent Watkins is presenting.
Neither one is really that on the nose.
What would you call it then? The Alamo
I'm not
House.
sure.
Toss?
If I had thought of a better title, I would have named this Hangout on Air that better title instead.
I see.
Let's get on with the
It's
suggestions.
not like I care.
All right.
Well,
Put Matt on the spot then.
thanks. I'm still going to go ahead and go with my original suggestion, which was the.
Go ahead.
It is. It's the more recent. Wait, are you angry?
I was angry. Just go on.
Your microphone started flaking out right when you started suggesting.
No, he was saying it's the more recent.
It's the more recent run of the comic book Prophet, which was done by Image. It was originally an extremely 90s Rob Liefeld comic, but in, I think, 2013, or maybe even 2012, it was revived. Yeah, it was 2013. It was revived by Image as a completely new series, but they didn't restart it at number one. It starts at 2021. It's got a story by I'm not super familiar with all these comic writers, but Brandon Graham and art by Simon Ray. It's got really fantastic art all the way through it by a variety of different artists, but in particularly Simon Ray does the first 3 issues. It's mostly the biggest running theme throughout the book is survival in an incredibly harsh and unforgiving environment, and deals with a sort of post-human type Earth civilization, in which the last surviving remnants of humanity have been scattered across the universe, and sort of like this derelict backwater planet that nobody really cares about. It's
Oh, is he dead?
revealed
Matt, are you there?
He's been swallowed up.
Well, he did give us his recommendation, though.
Right.
Yeah. I guess we can't really. It's not really a good time for follow-up questions since his presentation was concluded by him losing the ability to communicate.
If I were an effective moderator in the situation, I would somehow make it the case that Matt could still speak to us.
I think you would have filled in some of those empty
Uh,
spaces. That's very interesting.
I read bits and pieces of the Creature back in the day.
To elaborate on what Matt is saying here, that's our thing.
Oh
What?
god, it's just painful. When like snippets.
Yeah, he is.
Lewis, you seem to be confusing Prophet with Preacher.
Oh,
He was
it's
talking
funny.
about Prophet.
I made the same mistake when he said prophet first, and I'm like, they brought back that thing, and it's
And then I thought, wait, I didn't know that was Rob Liefeld.
yeah. It took me a minute. I think we had gone through the same thought process.
And then you were smart enough.
Well, I heard you correctly, just for the record.
It's funny because your microphone was actually pretty clear at that point where I misheard you radically. I don't know.
That's not his fault.
It's not the microphone's fault either. It's entirely based on my connection.
Yeah, he's using the same kind of microphone you are, Lewis.
A built-in microphone on my laptop?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, it's... All right.
So what I'm getting is this is a work that we should all experience so that in the future we're reading a work that takes place in an apocalyptic wasteland. We can say, oh, it's just like, the second volume of Prophet.
The important part happens at the end of the first volume.
Wait.
Wait, when you say the first volume of the more recent run?
Right, of the more recent run.
Okay.
It's, I guess it's issue...
Wait, what?
It's issue 6.
I thought you said they didn't start the numbering over.
Yeah, so they start at 21.
In the book that I have, it's numbered it's renumbered from chapters 1 through 6, but I think those would be... I guess it would be issue 27.
Issue 27, okay.
Okay.
Although...
Okay.
But now the original run of this, do you recommend that? Because I'm not familiar with the old Prophet or the new one.
I'm not extremely familiar with the old one either, but I've seen a few scattered pages on the internet, and it's exactly what you expect from Rob Liefeld in the 90s. So I wouldn't.
Not a very pressing recommendation. That much.
It may be possible to ironically enjoy.
Is there like a whole industry of people taking ongoing Rob Liefeld properties and being like, what if we made it not shitty?
Well, it worked for
Like
Deadpool.
Supreme.
One?
What?
Didn't Alan Moore do that with Supreme?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was pretty good. I'm not sure it's something that I would recommend on here.
Here's a question. Would you recommend a commercial where Rob Liefeld gets interviewed about his buttonfly jeans?
No, because everybody is already familiar with that.
Fair enough. It is a cultural touchstone.
Deservedly so.
So, Matt, if you had to encapsulate the core of why this is something that spoke to you to recommend.
In one word.
Suggest, not recommend.
In one word.
Sorry, to suggest people have in their cultural suitcase.
Yes, to suggest as a recommendation.
To recommend as a suggestion, Ben.
Well, the whole thing is written in a way that it reveals to you the world of the book without explaining things, and you sort of have to figure it out. And then right at the end of the first volume, it sort of turns that on its head. It's like, oh, I guess that's not what's happening.
I see.
There's like this other character that is apparently way more important than anybody else in the book.
I see.
Do you think it might have been less mysterious if you had read the first volume?
No. Well, I've read synopsis of the first. The 90s Prophet, but
Did you read Preacher? Maybe that explains some things.
No, I didn't read Preacher. I'm sorry.
That reminds me of a complaint that I heard about the Golden Compass movie compared to the book, which is the movie starts with like an explanatory monologue that tells you everything about this world, and that like a lot of what people loved about the book was that like you basically shared the perspective of this like 12-year-old girl who knew nothing,
Right.
and learning it all for the first time. So like, she didn't know that there were talking bears until like the part of the book where she runs into a talking bear. but they
Right.
have the whole thing in the like opening monologue of the movie that's like, and the talking bears fight each other violently. It's like, well, the whole thing was being shocked by learning when they're talking bears.
Yeah, they just ruined that scene in their
The same-
own movie.
Yeah, and Lewis, you kind of ruined it by giving us the spoiler that the bears can talk.
In fairness, the movie already spoiled it. I just
Yeah,
shared.
but you said that's also true of the book.
Okay. Are there
It's
further,
obviously not a spoiler for the movie.
are there further questions or comments for Matt about Prophet?
Wait, I'm still not sure. Have
I
we
don't-
gotten to the core of why it's being suggested?
Yeah, I thought it was
well-
the experience of the like. You're sort of learning as you go.
Okay.
These together because they're not being explained, and then it still manages to pull a huge fast one on you
Yeah.
and like twist at the end of the first volume.
That does sound promising.
Promising as a cultural touchstone, Ben, or promising as a narrative device?
Well, sort of promising as a narrative device, but I mean promising in the sense that I think I might find it interesting to experience.
I see.
Oh, right. It's not confusing because it's told in a confusing way. It's alien. It's not a storytelling issue that makes it confusing. It's just that the world that it takes place in is so alien and unnatural.
Every time people try to talk to each other in the world, their mics like cut in and out, so you can only hear like every third word.
It's
Yeah,
not-
wait, you're saying it's not a storytelling reason, it's just because this setting and what's going on is so unnatural, but isn't that itself kind of a storytelling consideration?
I guess.
That they set out to tell that type of
It's
story
not
that would be
like-
difficult to...
It means it's not a
Like the tiles are laid out.
Oh, okay.
It seemed to me like Matt wasn't saying that they fumbled the storytelling so much as that they played with your preconceptions.
Right, that it's done intentionally and for a good reason.
Yeah, but isn't this just some stupid fucking comic book?
Uh,
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good.
you could say the same about a lot of comics.
We should
Yeah,
ask ourselves.
Seriously, isn't that what this is?
We should
Like,
ask.
if we look at this, are we going to not say this is some stupid fucking comic book?
That's how incredibly hostile of you, Vince.
That can you guarantee that Vincent will not have that reaction when he reads this?
I think it would be very worthwhile for us to litigate the question of whether a comic
I
book
can't.
art, because that's never been discussed by anyone before.
Okay, but if you walked into a comic shop to get an issue of Prophet, how close would it be to like an issue of The Amazing Spider-Man, assuming that the comics were not laid out alphabetically?
You mean how close physically in the store?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Okay, you don't mean the experience of getting it and reading it.
No, how close are you? How
That's
far
going to vary depending on the store. You know
Yeah.
that, right?
Most stores would do it alphabetically, I think.
Yeah, I think most
So a lot
stores
of
are going
them
to do
group
it.
by publisher first.
Vincent, I know for a fact
Which
that
is
if
kinda
you are
weird.
going to look at this, you're going to go to the library, and you know,
That's-
How close are they in the Dewey Decimal System?
Well, with a lot of libraries, the comics and graphic novels all get mixed together in a big pile.
Sorry, but are you going to libraries or junk heaps?
I'm serious. Graphic novel sections in libraries have been very poorly curated.
But are they literally just giant pile, like even a compost heap of?
that
Yes, Liz,
you know,
it's
Lewis,
literally in a compost heap. That's
That-
why I said compost in my.
So the issues of Prophet have been collected into, graphic novels or whatever, right? Like, what's the
Perhaps a
title I
trade
should be looking
paperback?
for? Yeah, there's a trade paperback, right? What's it called?
I
The
don't know.
Essential Prophet, collected by Smilin' Stan Lee.
Oh man, guys, if you go to the Wikipedia page for Prophet and you see the cover of the old school Rob Liefeld one, You would not believe that anyone would seriously recommend reading this comic.
Okay, he's not recommending the Rob Liefeld
I
run.
know. That's all I'm saying is, like, if that was what he was, I'm making sure our listeners know that if they Google, the image they're going to see there is not the thing that he's recommending.
Okay, our listeners should know that because Matt stated that multiple times.
But maybe his microphone was cutting out.
But we heard it.
All right, so I'm looking at Prophet 1, Remission, story by Brandon Graham, art by Simon Roy. Are those the names he said earlier?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, that's the one.
then I'm placing my request from the library. I'm going to read this.
Yeah, Prophet Volume 1 Remission. Oh man, the cover of issue 21 looks so much more like a thing I might read than the cover of issue 1 by Rob Liefeld.
Promising words.
Marion Churchland is much better at drawing cover art than I would care about.
Yes.
This looks sort of familiar. Might have read it before. Made quite an impression on me, it seems.
Ben, are you looking at the image of the number 1 issue?
Yeah. Yeah, it has, I think, an angry-looking guy wearing purple.
Ridiculous.
With a sword.
And does
He's
he have
got a
like
lot of muscle.
a jetpack on? What is that on his shoulders?
I think that's a jetpack, yeah, or possibly those are missiles.
Oh, man.
And then are you scrolling down to see Prophet issue 21 cover?
Okay.
Sorry, this is not what we should be doing, Vincent.
No, I think this is
But-
okay.
Yeah, I think this is fine.
Keep it. Oh, we lost Matt.
He'll be back.
It's all right.
Alright.
We're
Okay,
getting a
keep
lot
in
of
mind,
mileage.
we are about half an hour into this now.
Holy shit.
We're not actually half an hour into this.
Oh, we'll fix that in post.
No, we won't.
Yeah. That's an amazing cover on Prophet 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just going to rag on Rob Liefeld this whole time.
No, I don't even.
That is-
I
that
kind
is-
of admire that the cover is just like, yeah, I don't own the rights to Shatterstar anymore, but what the fuck are you going to do about it?
I don't get that reference, but it was still funny.
Oh, it's just
Well,
a
perhaps Vincent could recommend something to you that would help you understand his reference.
Speaking of Vincent suggesting things, not recommending Ben.
Go on. I'm curious about where you're going with this segue.
I think it's time for Ben's suggestion.
All right, my suggestion is another comic. Sorry, Vincent.
No, go ahead.
Lewis, I think you've read this one before, actually. I recommend the comic Meanwhile by Jason Shiga.
Okay, I have read that. Why don't you tell us a bit about it?
All right, this is so it's a comic that you can buy as a self-contained book. There's also an iPhone app version if anyone cares about that. Vincent, it may or may not be in your local library. If not,
It
you
is,
could
I've read
buy
it.
a copy on Amazon for $4.
We
So,
both read it. You fucked
read it?
up.
Oh, wow. We should have checked this beforehand.
Has
Yeah.
Matt read it?
Matt is muted. I can't
It doesn't
tell.
even exist anymore. But go ahead. We
Meanwhile. All right,
presumably have
so
an
should I
audience.
go on with recommending it? Or
Yeah, I'm
suggesting it, I mean?
I mean, we're live on the air right now, so I say we discuss it as much as possible.
Alright. Yeah, anyway. Alright, so it's a comic, kind of a... Jason Shiga does a bunch of kind of choose-your-own-adventure interactive comics. You know, where you get to a panel where, in this case, the main character is at an ice cream shop and he could order chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream. And you can pick either one of those and see what panel comes next in the story.
Do we need a spoiler warning for this part?
No, that's a very early plot twist.
Okay. There's not even actually any
Anyway.
twist with it. That's literally the opening of the book, is that you have to make that choice, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you think about Choose Your Own Adventure, I think most of us are used to the pattern of just reading through a branching narrative just with this depth-first search, trying to exhaustively get all the nodes in order and experience all the content that way. Just have this mechanical process charging through. Jason Shiga does things with the form that can go beyond that, that it doesn't feel like that kind of mechanical task. And I was recommending Meanwhile because it's an example of a few interesting tricks he does to make that work. And I think that's a useful thing to build on, since interactivity in fiction is a pretty interesting thing. And having this example of some good ways of enabling it is useful. Meanwhile also has concepts like quantum immortality, which are interesting to have available in your toolbox of science fiction things to discuss, similar to Groundhog Day. So really, if I were just going to recommend it on that basis, there are probably quicker ways of explaining quantum immortality.
Yeah. Do you know of any other works that are like Meanwhile? Like that you would, if you were communicating to someone, it's like Meanwhile, if you've both read Meanwhile?
Yes, there's another comic by Jason Shiga called Knock Knock. It has some similar structural elements.
Is it another, it's a choose your own adventure type deal?
Yeah. Yeah, it's harder to find, though. So it's not one that I would recommend on here. I mean, well, in a sense, I recommend pretty much anything Jason Shiga's made. But not the very specialized sense that what you should care about is about.
What you should care about, footnote, and then the footnote says, for having conversations with shared cultural background of a certain sort.
You know, I would guess that there are actually some Twine games that do a similar thing in having, again, a limited choose-your-own-adventure style interface that still allows for actual puzzle-solving behavior to emerge. Which is one of the nice things that Meanwhile does. I don't want to give a really spoiler-filled example of that.
Are you talking, Ben, about the fact that the mechanics of choosing a path often gives you, like, peripheral awareness of what some of the other paths might lead to?
Not really that so much. I mean,
because I thought that
actually, I should probably just give a spoiler here, since otherwise it's difficult to discuss the particular examples.
Yeah.
But something like realizing what the scientist guy has told you about when he last had the code for the time machine written down, and then realizing that that's what you need to do with going back a little bit and then reading his mind to see the code as he entered it.
I see. I was thinking
about... Remember, if you just use the memory reading device on him to begin with, you don't quite see that. You have to work out that you need to use the time machine first. Then if you do that, even though it's not clued as being a very different type of action, you'll get different information that way.
I see. I was thinking about the fact that, like, the paths that you follow for the choosing your adventure doesn't just say, like, turn to page 12. You actually follow, like, a visual path, and it often means that you will see some of the other stuff that could happen in the story.
Yeah, and
then
you will, in fact, also see some things that you can't get to just by making choices in the paths.
Yeah.
Like, there are pages in the book that you can't reach by any other means.
Than cheating?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, though which is actually... I was recently rereading Christopher Manson's Maze. That has... It's safe to give spoilers for that by now, right?
Well, is that about corn?
Lewis, have you not read Maze by Christopher Manson?
No.
Lewis doesn't know
anything
about corn.
I had assumed that would be right out as a candidate for this, because clearly everybody in Synod is fully familiar with it.
Is this some sort of book about Jack Masters? Because that's the only thing I would assume everybody but me and Synod has read.
No, it's a book about a maze.
Although it's it's going to be really interesting to our listeners to hear this, but the book Maze was one of the first things that brought Jack and I together. It's because he mentioned the book Maze on a website of his, and then in the same place mentioned the Pokey Principle. And I was like, oh, this is a guy I got to talk to. Maze by Christopher Manson is a great book. It's not my suggestion, but...
Right, we're all talking it up here, but
yeah,
that is not an official suggestion of what you should care about.
You're in fact recommending it rather than suggesting it for the...
Yeah, we might suggest it in a later episode. We reserve that right.
Okay.
All right, so my suggestion was kind of a bust because most of you have read it already.
Only 66% of us.
and there are a lot of
Two out
other
of three
people in the
have.
Synod who couldn't be here tonight.
That's right. We should remind our listeners that there are more than 4 people in the Synod. In fact, anyone you know could be part of the Synod.
Well, in fairness, there's only one person in the Synod, and that person takes on different aspects at different locations of the universe.
It's like how all electrons are the same electron.
Right.
Okay.
I think.
Matt, do you have any questions for Ben, or points you want to follow up on there?
No, I think all my questions were explained by other people's questions.
Okay. Well then, unless Vincent has any further questions, I guess we will go to...
Well, I should add that reading a physical copy of the book is fun as a tactile experience. There are these neat tabs that you turn to. All right, now I think we're done.
For real, or are you going to interrupt me again? All right.
You heard it here, folks. Ben Heaton, thumbs up to books.
Okay.
Thumbs
Now-
up to books with tabs in the
turn.
side.
Now it's Vincent's turn to tell us the book that he thinks is the best book to read. That's how this works, right?
No, it's not
We're
a book.
recommending this
It
as
doesn't have to be a book. It could be any work of art, like a comic or a movie or a lake.
Yeah, it's not about the best one.
All right, so please recommend your favorite lake.
My favorite lake. God damn it. No. Look, here's what I got. And I'm not sure how broad this suggestion should be taken, but I'll start out broadly and then kind of narrow it down to what I'm talking about. Because there's a series of children's videos by the title Gustafer Yellow Gold that I first checked out, not because I had kids, but because I've been talking with friends about horrible names to give children, and one of them had suggested the name Gustafer that they saw in a baby book, and we all laughed at what a terrible name that was. And then I saw this DVD in a store called Gustafer Yellow Gold, and I wanted to get it for him as a gift because we had made fun of the name before. But then when I listened to it, I was really blown away. It's a children's cartoon, but it's just a series of songs. It's not like a narrative, really. So the first one is Gustafer Yellow Gold's Wide Wild World. I'm not sure if that came across. Wide Wild World. Gustafer Yellow Gold's Wide Wild World. And the guy behind this stuff, his name's Morgan Taylor. He essentially just writes songs about the life and the friends of this character, Gustafer Yellow Gold, who's an alien from the sun who comes to Earth for no apparent reason and has, G-rated non-adventures. But what's interesting about it, and I guess the only way I can kind of circle around to getting to what's special about it that I can't explain in words, is there's something about it that's kind of like Shel Silverstein's children's books. In particular, I think of like The Giving Tree and The Missing Piece and Lafcadio, the Lion Who Shot Back, where there's something really ambiguous and kind of sad and poignant at the end, but it doesn't really stop being a children's book, and it's not like you don't read it and think like, boy, I don't think the kids can handle this, or it's too emotionally complex for children. It's appropriate for children, but then it still deals with, some serious, I don't know, life shit, or it fills you with some real sadness or longing or something when you get to the end of the Giving Tree, and it just seems like horrible that the tree's cut down and the boy's an old man and they're just sitting there, or you get to the end of the Missing Piece and it's like there's not a real answer for what the missing piece. Have everyone read the books I'm talking about, the Shel Silverstein books? Yeah, I mean, the missing piece, he's looking for his missing piece, and he finds his missing piece, and he's not satisfied with his missing piece. But it's not like the typical cartoon where you get the end, and then it's like, well, he learned to love himself, and that was the greatest love of all, or whatever. It's kind of like just open-ended about, like, there's not a perfect ending there. That's just the way life is. But anyway, the Gustafer Yellowgold stuff, it's less on the nose about how poignant it is. Like, it doesn't have this ending that you get to where it's just clearly they didn't resolve everything and the author is telling you, here's what I want you to think about. But in a way, it's even darker than the kind of, sadness or ambiguity about life that you find in Shel Silverstein stuff. Like on the second song here, it's called I'm From the Sun, and if I'm recommending that you actually go check something out to see whether this is worth your time, I would start with, you can go online and you can watch I'm From the Sun, legally in fact, from the Gustafer Yellowgold website. I don't know what it is. It's probably like gustaferyellowgold.com or something. But anyway, it's, he's just singing a song about how he came from the sun and he moved to the earth and how his life is different on the earth and on the sun. And then at the end, there's this verse where he sings about when he dies, how his spirit is going to turn into gas and then evaporate into the outer layers of the sun. And it's not presented in a way that's supposed to be scary or anything. It's just kind of nonchalantly explaining what he's like and then how his life is going to end. And then that kind of stuff keeps recurring throughout the series, where it's not like they don't put any weight on it that it's supposed to be something sad or terrible, but they're constantly talking about
how he's going to die.
Yeah, well, death itself does recur quite a bit, actually. I'm looking a couple tracks later, you've got Your Eel. Gustafer Yellowgold has a pet eel that lives with him, and it's the song is about his relationship with his eel and the fun things he does with his eel. And then again, there's this verse where the eel says that after he's dead, he hopes that Gustafer Yellowgold remembers him fondly. Later on in the series, there's a song about birds where it says the birds are interested in people. One of the things they want to learn is how people can live so long, and whether there's a song that the birds can learn that would allow them to live as long as people. And it's not just that it's a childish thing with some adult stuff interjected into it. Again, it kind of sparks an emotion that I can't describe well, which is why I'm suggesting it. But it remains completely childish and appropriate and understandable to children while simultaneously dealing with, really serious stuff in a way that I can't think of anything else that does.
If nothing else does that, then how does it fit your criteria for the request?
Well, because if I encountered something like it, I think I might say, this is kind of like, Gustafer Yellowgold would be
like a platonic ideal that other things aspire to?
Right. I mean, in the same way that what I just did with Shel Silverstein's, I would say that Shel Silverstein's work does a bit of that, but, it's like what Gustafer Yellowgold does, but I guess you could take Shel Silverstein's stuff, but I think Shel Silverstein's stuff is easier to understand without even having read it, just that it's a children's story without a happy ending or a sad ending, just kind of an ambiguous ending where the character's not really sure what they're going to do. But yeah, I can see your point that how often am I going to reference a children's work that has adult themes? But I don't know.
No, it was just that, no, it wasn't that. It was just that you said that it was like astonishingly unique. And if the whole point here is to have reference points, I was trying to make sense of why such a
Yes.
would be a value. It wasn't
Well,
like
it sounds to me like this would also be potentially useful as a contrast. Like discussing some work might say it doesn't really do what Gust for Yellow Gold does, and it falls short of that. Perhaps that could have been a better direction, that
Oh,
sort of
you
thing.
want to
That's
use
a
it
good
as a
point,
metric
too.
for shitting on something. Like, oh, it's not as
Yeah.
Yeah, something that doesn't have enough Gust for Yellow Goldness.
And it's kind of a good reference. A good reference point too. Just if someone is defending some children's work, maybe that fits some very stereotypical mold of a cartoon where everything's merry and happy and there's nothing wrong in the world, and you say, well, this is stupid. This isn't teaching your kids anything, and then someone says, well, for little kids you can't have that kind of stuff. It's a fair
That's a
reference
fair
point to
point.
say, no, look, here's something that absolutely works and yet still introduces these concepts to children.
Vincent, what percentage of your motivations for things is based around whether or not you get to call something stupid at the end? Because that was both a question you had for Matt and an example you had here.
So the question is how. I don't think there are too many life activities where you can't refer to things as stupid. So I don't think I seek out
I say.
activities that allow me to call things stupid.
It's not his fault things are stupid, Lewis.
Lewis, you'll note that he did not call my suggestion stupid.
He actually did call. He called it stupid to suggest it, given that most of us have read it.
I said, did you fucked up? No,
You didn't say it was stupid.
I think my question of Matt was totally legit, though. It happens all the time that people recommend comic books, and then you read it, and all that it is it's marginally better than all the other shitty comic books on the shelf. Like, it's not really anything worth reading. It's just like, hey, this comic book isn't completely stupid.
Have you read Persepolis?
Have I read what?
Persepolis.
Yeah,
I
I've
think
read
he's talking
Persepolis.
about more things like Supreme.
Yeah, I'm talking about stuff that you would get in a monthly, like, 20 to 30 page.
Yeah, okay, well, you're kind of implying that something being a stupid comic book is bad.
If it's stupid, I guess that's bad.
Well, why is that bad, Vincent? Can you expand on that?
No, I'm going to rest on the
Sorry, can we go back to Vincent's suggestion? You guys have questions about Vincent's suggestion, not about Vincent's critiques of other people's suggestions.
Matt does, but all I can hear are grunts.
That's because I'm only grunting. I'm having a
As usual.
What age of children is this work for?
I would say about as soon as you could expect a kid to sit down and watch a video, like without getting bored and running around. So I don't know, except that my kids aren't really there yet. Other kids the age 2 and 3 might be there.
Okay, that is interesting.
Oh,
That is, in fact, surprisingly early for
Yeah.
sort of themes you were discussing, which is why I
would-
was asking.
I would definitely say pre-kindergarten. Yeah, I think like 3, 4, maybe. I mean, it could be enjoyable after that too. I mean, I enjoy it.
But Vincent, at what age do you think children really need to wrestle with like the fact that they have mortality and will die?
Uh,
I don't know that they ever need to wrestle with it, but I don't think that
awareness.
these things really make kids wrestle with it so much as just be aware of it. I mean, they don't present it as a super tragic thing, but I guess they don't like make light of it either. I mean, they don't say he's going to die and go to heaven and be with all his best pals. They acknowledge that he's going to stop existing, but they don't treat it as a terrifically sad thing.
The birds do wish that they could live longer.
Yeah, that's a really poignant thing about the birds too, and I really like the way that he looks at it from the perspective of birds, that they understand the world through the songs that they sing, and so they think that living longer, the key to it has to be just singing the right song.
For all we know, they're right.
Yeah. Hey, you guys know that I have a robotic vacuum cleaner, and it just started, so things could get noisy over here. Maybe it's a good time to wrap up.
Well, we have covered all of the suggestions.
Right.
I think so.
So we're going to do this again next week, and we should make good efforts to go out and read or listen to whatever are the other people's suggestions, and then come back and we'll talk about this week's suggestions next week before we give new suggestions.
It may be useful to put text versions of the things that we suggested in the description of the video when it goes up.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes or comments or however this works.
Why
And
would
this is
you-
up now. We're live.
We'll fix it.
Yeah, I know, but you have to edit it later.
I do?
Well, no, you have to edit the description later.
Oh, okay, I can do that.
Well, who's going to listen to the pod/broadcast if we give them the suggestions right up front?
Ashley.
They'll want to hear us suggesting them. They want to hear why they should care about what they should care about.
You should at least put a spoiler warning on there.
Find out what Vincent's gonna call fucking stupid this time.
First
Lewis,
of all, I
language.
didn't say the comic was fucking stupid. I asked whether it was a fucking stupid comic or a stupid fucking comic book, which is a totally legit question.
Right, but in explaining why, you said most comics are fucking stupid. So you should call a bunch of comics fucking stupid.
That is true. That's true of most media, though.
Yeah.
That's not a comics-only issue.
Yeah, and not only did I say that most comics are fucking stupid, but even most comics that people recommend as being good are still fucking stupid because
Even the best comics.
in fact, there's never been a good comic. No.
But to be fair, it's true of all media that there has never been a good comic.
Okay. Wait, I'm gonna give a 1-second suggestion. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow is an amazing comic.
See, I like that one. I'm not sure that Vincent would.
I don't care.
I'm honestly not sure about that.
Is it about Superman?
Yeah, and it in particular requires you to care about Golden Age Superman continuity a bit.
I'm going to say this, though. No, here's why I'm going to defend this as a legitimate recommendation for the purpose of this podcast. Because it was a moment that's really important in understanding how people in comic book world thought about continuity shifts. And the distinction between imaginary stories, which was like a subset of fictional works that were extra-fictional somehow, and not part of the ongoing story, and they let him have free reign to tie up things however he wanted with this story.
Before a canon reset.
And so I think that there's a lot of utility that one could get out of that sort of comic and the way in which he dealt with that freedom that they gave him as a cultural touchstone.
Wait, you said he. Who was the author?
Alan Moore. Wait, Lewis, Vincent hates
Alan Moore. God damn it.
Okay. We don't have time for this.
The point is,
I don't even hear a robotic vacuum,
I don't
honestly.
It's 2 rooms away at the moment. It's being
either.
very...
It's coming.
end of the suggest cast. So,
No, I don't hate
if the robotic vacuum eats us, let's all say goodnight.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.